Well, for more on all this, let's bring in Liz Peek, Fox News contributor, and Steve Moore, Unleash Prosperity co-founder and former Trump advisor. Good to see you both.
You too, David.
Liz, are Republicans uniting around some kind of fix for our healthcare system?
It's really a good question, David, and I'm laughing because they have known for how long that these subsidies were going to expire. I mean, forgive me for dumping on Republican leadership, but I cannot believe that we are seconds away from what is viewed by many people as a crisis, and Democrats are making hay on that, and they don't have a plan. Why don't they have a plan? I mean, and look, by the way, this is not their problem. I get that. But all of them going out and telling Americans, this is Obamacare, which has failed. And I keep making that point. It's totally true.
Right.
Terrible program. That's why they need subsidies in the first place. And they need extra subsidies when people actually began to get sick. Who knew? Who would have thought? But I mean, the idea that, and they didn't vote for this bill, but the bill is law, and we knew it was going to expire. Why didn't they have a plan 6 months ago?
Steve, I understand the difficulty of unwinding Obamacare from our healthcare system. Again, as Liz said, it was supposed to save money. It's ended up we're spending 4 times as much as we were when it started. I mean, it's such a lie, and we knew that. What this was all about was Obama getting the camel's nose under the tent on his way to socialized medicine, which he pretty much admitted several times.
Sure.
However, I think President Trump has been so clear about what needs to be done. The question is how to get there. What needs to be done is putting no distance between the provider and the recipient of health care, getting out the middlemen, and the middlemen are easy to spot. It's the government and the insurance company. And for all the talk from the Socialists and the Democratic Party about how bad insurance companies, and they're bailing them out again.
Yep. Well, we are spending record amounts on healthcare right now. Everybody knows that. And guess what is happening with Americans' health? It's declining.
Yes.
It's not improving.
Yes.
So if you're spending more and you're getting worse results, maybe you start doing something different. So that's the big picture here. We're not getting our money's worth. And of course, those of us, like the three of us who fought Obamacare 15 years ago, predicted this would happen. And here we are with exactly the results that we predicted. I think it's not that hard of a system to reform. Americans are way overinsured for inflation, for healthcare, not underinsured. They could pay much lower premiums, and anybody who's gotten their premium, announcements for next year, they're going to by 12 or 13%. And do you know under a lot of the Obamacare plans, it's illegal to have a catastrophic, just a high deductible plan. So everything is upside down.
You should explain, by the way, that's a good point. Milton Friedman used to say you have a catastrophic insurance plan for everybody in case something really awful happens.
Just like if you have fire insurance in case your house burns.
And that appeals to young people, which is the group that isn't buying into Obamacare, which is why the whole thing fell apart.
And the main thing that the president is great on is saying you are a better watcher over your own money than the insurance companies are, or the hospitals are, or the doctors are. Therefore, you should have control of your money.
Yeah. I mean, nothing about
That's called
works.
a health savings account. You hear HSA thrown around.
But David, you can't get something through that in 13 days. I mean, that you can't get a major reform like that in place. I mean, it seems to me 6 months ago they said, okay, 1 year extension, and over that period, this is what we're going to move towards. That doesn't seem like rocket science,
So meanwhile, what are we going to do?
Well, unfortunately,
is there going to be a deal made, a deal with the devil in terms of refunding Obamacare?
Yeah, I mean, you just quoted Milton Friedman. Ronald Reagan was famous for saying there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program, because remember, these subsidies were supposed to be temporary. But I'll just say one thing about Speaker Johnson. He actually does have a good plan. It's basically allowing people to pay for your health care with cash and take that out of your HSA, getting rid of a lot of the excessive. The insurance companies are the ones who are making all the money off of Obamacare.
Absolutely.
Get them middlemen out. So Republicans have a good plan. We just had a report last week from the General Accounting Office finding that there's tens and tens of billions of dollars of fraud in Medicaid. And the Democrats, every one of them in the Senate, voted to stay on the current course without any kind of fraud protection whatsoever.
Liz, I want to switch to something that is outrageous. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. We had even a lot of Democrats, at least privately, were saying that it was a genius idea of President Trump during the campaign to annex tips and overtime pay and certain social security taxes that older folks were forced to pay, to exempt that from taxation. Well, now New York, a big lump of coal they put in our Christmas stocking, they have opted out of the amnesty for tips. They have opted out of the amnesty for overtime pay. And other blue states have done just the same thing. They talk about uniting with the workers. Not a peep, by the way, from Mamdani or the other socialist AOC. Even though she was a bartender, she should understand how important tips are.
Or unions. We're the restaurant and hotel workers unions on this, right? Look, they are terrified that come this tax season, in 2026, early 2026, Americans are going to realize that this big, beautiful bill that they have savaged since the day it was signed is actually a good bill for a lot of working class people. So we have talked about very much the stimulus that's going to come out of this. They don't want a strong economy. They don't want Trump's bill to look successful and like it's really providing for Americans. So they'll sabotage it. But surely someone's going to notice that everyone else in the country is getting these breaks, and if you live in New York, you're not. Now, mind you, New York has a fiscal cliff. I get it, but my gosh, what a horribly small and mean-spirited thing to do to the citizens of New York.
They literally want people to suffer in order to stay in power.
Well, the same thing, David, with one of the hidden gems in that big, beautiful bill was it provides billions of dollars for low-income parents to send their kids to a better school than the public school. It's free money to the states, David. Free money from the federal government.
Absolutely.
And we've got 4 or 5 Democratic governors say, no, we're not going to take that money.
Incredible.
We don't want these kids to have an exit option from the corrupt public school.
Steve, just to stay with you for a moment, we had the Fed decision this week. Besides the rate cut, there were a couple of other things. Powell, for once, seems to realize that incentives matter, that in fact the economy is growing more than he thought it would as a result of all the incentives for investment, for working harder, et cetera, in the economy. But at the same time, he's done something weird. Larry talked about it earlier in the week, which was expanding the portfolio of the Fed. They're going to be buying $40 billion worth of treasuries every month.
Right.
Why? Is this just, I think it's kind of a power move. I think Powell wants to exert the power and influence of the Fed with regard to our monetary system.
So, yeah,
what do you think?
When the Fed does that, basically they're just putting more money into the economy. And so my problem with that is, look, inflation has come down a lot, no question about it. We're at about 2.7%. We're not at 2%, David. So we still need to reduce the inflation rate. If you put $40 billion more money into the economy, that's not going to reduce inflation, it's going to increase it.
Well, we might find, Liz, and I brought with me the growth of the Reagan years after the tax cuts. Remember, they were delayed about 2 years. He made a deal with Tip O'Neill, the Democrats, and okay, he made the deal, it was done. But once they kicked in 1983, we had a 4.5% growth in 83, 7.3% growth in 1984, 4.2% in 85. It goes on. The average was 4.3% for 7 fat years, as Bob Bartley used to say.
Yeah.
Is that what we could see coming up?
Well, I think between all the investments coming into the United States from foreign countries and companies, that is certainly powerful. The AI, everyone is so concerned about AI valuations and stuff, but look, it's a huge new technology which is going to lead to enormous productivity gains. What does that mean? Higher wages, higher income. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on the economy. I think, you know, unless Democrats just step in the way a bit every chance they get, which I think they will, even so, I think these are forces too hard to contain.
But they can't step in the way of energy prices going down, Steve. And we have a couple of senators from North Dakota coming up after you, and they're going to give us new information about something. We've already seen gas prices go down, but we're going to see just the generalized cost of energy, with the exception of those blue states that have extra charges in it that keep energy costs high.
So funny you should mention that, because there's one state, you know what state has the highest gasoline prices?
Tell me.
California.
Yes.
They're paying like they're still paying $5 a gallon when some states are paying $2. We used to use the gas price as sort of the barometer what's happening prices.
Even
but
President
they're down
Obama
now,
did.
so that you don't hear the Democrats talking about gas prices much anymore.
Liz, President Obama famously said people vote on the basis of how much it costs to fill up the tank.
Yeah, right.
And remember, the national average is below $3 now, but actually without California, it would be probably $2.50. I mean, but it's true.
Good point.
You know, that does pump up the average number, right?
Yeah. I want to end on a fun note, because you brought up the fact that an American treasure a guy named Dick Van Dyke, who is known more people over
Some
50
of us
because
know
of
us.
the Dick Van Dyke
Some
Show.
of us know him as Rob Petrie. Right?
Rob Petrie was his character in the Dick Van
Right.
Dyke Show. He's going to turn 100 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you did a bunch of his clues to longevity.
Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat them. Maybe we could show pictures of him while I'm doing it. But exercise regularly, that's
Right.
pretty commonsensical. Practice good mental health. He says, let go of anger, hate, and resentment, which is very hard to do when you're holding one of these around going
Amen.
into expos. Find purpose. Van Dyke stayed active in his career and personal life throughout his 80s and his 90s, which is important. Larry's always talking about that. And I love the final one. Cultivate joy. I never wake up in a bad mood, he says. Make that your practice.
Yeah, I read
I love
in his book, he said, I don't hate anyone. You know, that's a good,
That's a good thing.
Wow.
And you're right that to stay off all the social media channels if you want to be in that frame of mind.
He's probably too
really.
old to know what social media
I
is.
know. He's not on Twitter.
I don't
That's
know.
what
I
makes
bet he
it-
can still do a step or two, by the way.
Yeah.
He was a great dancer. Good to see you both. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Thanks
much
for having me.